Good afternoon. Welcome back to the channel. This is Jim from Bang Time Pool. And let me start by letting Brian from FX Billiards know they're back, baby. No, just a little inside joke. Anyway, I was recently asked, it was actually a difficult question, to help someone with aiming. Now, I've been playing this game a long time. I've thought about it. How do I aim? I actually combine a lot of aiming systems, some that I have made up myself, things like that. I take the pieces from a certain aiming system and another one, put them together depending on what shot I use. Maybe not the best plan of attack, but it works for me. So what I want to do today is I want to just start with a system that I think is going to be beneficial to someone. This person actually said that they don't see the ghost ball. Okay, so if we wanted to make this 4-ball, we know that we have to hit the cue ball right here. Okay, when that ghost ball disappears, one of my viewers, they don't see that line. Okay, so in thinking, I'm a visual person. Okay, I do use that system at times depending on what the shot is. So I do use the ghost ball. Now, another system that I use is a system. Shane Van Bonen uses it. I don't know his exact. I know he does do this, but what I do on certain cut shots, and I have shots lined up here, and I'm going to explain this in a minute. And you're going to have the opportunity to tweak this whichever way works for you, but I'm going to give you what works for me. And again, like I said, I take a lot of systems, tweak them what works for me. I'm going to give you the basics of it. And, if it helps one of you out there, that's what I'm trying to do. All right, so if we look down the shaft, okay, of our cue, it doesn't look like a tip. It looks similar to this, okay, when you look to the end. I will show this on this side. Okay, now what I have done is, if you can see this, I have broken if this would be like looking down your shaft, okay, so you can see the red. This would be the middle of the shaft. Okay, then I have a quarter line, a half line, a 3/4, and then the side of my shaft. So in essence, I broke my shaft into 4 sections going to the right, 4 sections going to the left. Okay, red being the center. Okay, now I'm going to shut the lights out a little bit here, and I'm going to give you a visual of these lines and the shots. Okay, I'm going to get this out of the way. So I do have a laser pointer here, and I want to get down close. So this is my straight on 4-ball shot. Okay, so I'm going to move it back so it is perfectly straight. So if I look at the red portion, which is the center of my tip, so when I'm looking at the center of my cue ball, I'm looking directly down the center of my shaft to a point on the 4-ball right there. Okay, now I do have the outline of the numbers pointed so we can see the different angles. Okay, so when we have a no-cut shot, we use center ball, center of the shaft, a red line. Okay, so that's how I would make that 4-ball. So if I were to line that up, I'm going to have to slide this out of the way just a bit. Center of the ball, center of the shaft, and I would make the ball. Now, one thing I do want to point out, our angles do get a little more severe. Okay, so this angle actually looks like that. Now, I would again hit center of the cue ball to a slight angle on the 13 ball. That's where we would use a slight angle, and you can see the slight turn. So I have a very slight angle. That's where we'd use the 1/4 of our shaft. Okay, what does that mean? I would line up. I would still line up in the center of my cue ball, but my aim point, I look at that quarter of the shaft to that point. That gives me a visual. I still hit the center of the cue ball, which would force it here, but I'm looking at that quarter line. Okay, and I'm going to demonstrate this. Now, if we go into the 10, and I'm going to get a little more severe here with the cut, as you can see, now we're aiming here. So it's a little more severe than the 13. You can see how it's tilted. More severe of an angle. Now, I'm going to use the half. So I'm going to look at the green section. Okay, still lining my cue up, but now, right here is where I line my shaft up to that spot to make that ball. If I came down here to the 14, we would use the 3/4. Still center of the cue ball to that spot, but I'm lining up 3/4 of my shaft to that spot. And then of course, the big cut would be the edge of my shaft to that spot right there on the 11 ball. Okay? So I'm going to take a couple shots here. Give myself a little room. Kind of the same angle. Turn the light back on. Again, I'm going to go slow. Can be confusing. But once you get this, okay, it is great. Okay? Now, again, when I look at this, I don't look at a spot as big as that round circle. I have this. That's about the spot that I look for when I'm lining up a shot. Okay? It's about that big. All right? So, if I were to make this 13 ball, if I go back to my first ball that was straight in, I'm using center ball. Center ball to the center. Now, the angle got a little more severe. Not much. So what am I going to do? Again, center the ball. But this spot right here, I'm going to look at the top of my cue, and I'm going to have small divisions. 1/4, half, 3/4, and the side of my shaft. So I'm going to look down my shaft at 1/4, and I'm going to hit my spot. Okay? Now, we got a little more severe of an angle. As you can see. So this angle is just a little bit more, actually. So now, a little more severe, I'm actually going to use half of the shaft. I'm going to move this back so you can view it. Okay. Half of the shaft will line up to that spot between the 1 and the 0. So half of the left-hand portion of my shaft. Right here, center ball, looking down my shaft. I'm looking at about 10 o'clock on the cue, and that goes in. Okay? So now we're a little bit more severe. Okay, we're still cutting it inside. Okay? Now this is about a 3/4 cut. Okay, remember the 3/4? We're looking at the black. Okay, almost the side of the shaft. There's our 1/4, half, 3/4, and side of the shaft. I divide it into 4. So again, center of the cue ball. But now I'm looking at 3/4. I'm looking down 3/4 of my shaft on the left and lining up with that spot between the 1 and the 4. Get that out of the way. Okay. Now we get into the most severe cuts that we have. Okay, this is a straight on shot, but we are cutting it into that side. So, where did we say on the most severe cuts? Side of my shaft. So I'm looking down the side of my shaft and lining it up between the ones when I aim. Okay, so I'm aiming middle of the cue ball, but I'm looking at that spot in the middle of the ones. Okay, here. Okay, so let me put this back here a little bit. Make sure we can get some shots. So, some things we can do. We can work on, again, the cut shots that we made. We can work on rail shots. We can work on any type of shot that we feel necessary. Okay? So what I'm going to do right here, I'm going to show you a couple examples. Hopefully we'll get a good view. So if I have this shot right here, I'm going to make the 10 ball. Okay? So my angle is here. So that's not straight in. That's either a quarter or a half. I always go with the larger. So I'm going to look down my cue ball, half the shaft, and shoot. Okay? Now if we get a little more severe, okay? Still coming here. Now our angle is here. Okay, if we remember our angles, that's at least a 3/4. So I want to, now I'm using the right hand side because I'm cutting it to the right, using the right hand side of my shaft. And I'm looking down to that spot to make it in the corner, looking down, lining up 3/4 of my shaft to that spot. Okay? So, I hope that this is beneficial for you. Again, it's not as difficult as it seems. We're actually breaking our cue, the shaft of our cue, up into sections. That's going to pinpoint where we're looking, where we're aiming. All right, give it a shot. It's actually pretty amazing. Again, if it's a straight shot, straight down the shaft, straight in. If it's a slight angle, okay, that's a slight cut. Let me look down quarter of my shaft. Still hitting center of the cue ball. Still hitting the spot on your object ball, but it's actually where you're aiming your cue. Okay, I hope this is helpful. I hope this is beneficial to at least one person out there. Give it a shot. Again, I do use this on certain shots. It does work. Don't get frustrated with it. It is really technical. So when if you want to just get started and break it into straight, quarter, half, and side shaft, we can do that. It's depending on the size of the pockets you use and things like that. But I wanted to show you the technical portion of it and add all of the quarter, the half, the 3/4, and the actual side of the shaft. So again, I thank you for tuning in. Keep commenting. Trying to work on the lighting here. It shouldn't be too bad today. Give me a comment on the video if it worked for you, if it didn't work, and give me a thumbs up. And as always, have a good one.